You are in the right place if you are here for the Community Foundation of the North States Spring Grants Workshop. We're really glad that you're here. I know that many of you, probably all of you, have moved mountains to be here today to attend this live. Between weather and kids and power outages and all kinds of things, ice on the roads. So just really grateful for your time. There's a lot of information that we're going to cover. And so I very much appreciate that you're here today because we're a small team here at the Community Foundation, and it really helps us get a lot of information across to a lot of people at once. So thank you so much for making the time and commitment. Just a few housekeeping items as we get started. Again, we're recording this presentation. It will be emailed out to you and on our website. To the best of my knowledge, everyone is on mute at this time, but we do welcome your questions in the chat box. And if we can't get to your questions or don't know the answer, we'll provide contact information at the end. Our goals for today are to have you learn if your organization and project is a fit for our spring grant funds, and also to do a quick overview of our new online grant portal. Some of you, if you applied in the fall or if you have past grants, have already been using the portal. Others, it's new to you, so we'll be doing kind of an overview and some pro tips in that new system. All right, so a lot of you I know, but some of you I don't, and so it's so nice to meet you. My name is Megan. I'm the Program Officer here at the Community Foundation since 2020. I'm originally from Paradise, but I've been in Reading for quite some time. And a lot of that time I've worked as a nonprofit fundraiser. So I've been in similar shoes to you, writing grants and raising money for causes. And now I'm on the flip side in grant making. I'm the contact for all things grants here at the Community Foundation. And we also have from our team today online with us is Anna Hawley, our administrative assistant. She is the first point of contact here at the Community Foundation. So you may have talked to her on the phone or emailed with Anna. And she is in the chat box answering your questions today. So thank you, Anna, for your help. And if you haven't already, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat box, that would be really helpful. We'll see that transcript later, and it'll be interesting to see everyone that was here. So thank you. I just wanted to share a little bit about the Community Foundation if we're new to you. The Community Foundation of the North State, we were formerly known as Shasta Regional Community Foundation. That may be a familiar name to you. We had a name change back in 2020 to really show that we're serving more than just Shasta. We are a nonprofit public charity that serves Shasta, Siskiyou, and Tehama counties with a mission to impact the region through the power of giving. I say Shasta, Siskiyou, and Tehama. We sometimes do have certain funds that work in other counties like Trinity and Modoc. And so we're glad that you are here with us today if you're from Trinity and Modoc counties as well. We are home to over 150 funds here at the Community Foundation, including about 7 competitive grant funds. So we have many fund holders here. Some are private families, some are businesses, some manage scholarships, all kinds of different things. And really the common thread is that people or organizations out in the community give here at the Community Foundation. We're somewhat like a charitable bank in that we grow those funds through investment. And then we work with fund holders to help grant out those funds to great causes in the North State. And there's a number of different ways that we can help your cause that we can service for nonprofits. We provide funding opportunities through grants, both competitive and non-competitive grants. Those are like invitation-only kind of grants. We are home to the Jumpstart Fundraising Accelerator, which is a program that we kind of co-manage with Network for Good that helps groups learn to diversify their fundraising. And we're also home to North State Giving Tuesday, which happens every year after Thanksgiving. We can also help work with your donors. If you have donors to your nonprofit that want to do tricky style gifts like stocks or gifts from IRA transfers or real estate, we can help process those gifts and give the funds to you. We can also set up and help manage organizational endowment funds. So we have a number of nonprofits in the North State where perhaps they've received a large gift as someone's passing. We invest that principal gift and then can make grants back to the organization with interest earned over time. So it's one kind of unique giving vehicle that we help nonprofits with. And that's a little bit about what we do for nonprofits. So at this point, I'd love to hear where you are at. This helps us kind of gauge where our audience is. I'm going to launch a quick poll. If you could let us know where you're joining in from today, what county or counties your organization serve. I know some of your organizations are large and might serve multiple. Oh, this is so interesting. I love to see the live data come in. So it looks like most of you, about 65% are calling from Shasta County, and then about 40% from Siskiyou, about 25 to 30% from Tehama, and then 15% from Modoc, and 20%-ish from Trinity. That's so cool. Well, again, welcome all of you. I'm going to end this here. Oh, it lets me share results. Forgot since the last time I did this. That's cool. All right. So why you are here. The spring grant opportunities that we have coming up this cycle are the Burney Regional Community Fund, the ACES Resilience and Hope Fund of Shasta County, and the McConnell Fund. I have the due dates on here. You can also find them on our primary grant webpage, which is cfnorthstate.org/grant/grants. It's kind of nested in there. You can also browse your way there from our main website. So they're coming up pretty soon. I wanted to talk right off the bat about eligibility. So if you are not meeting these eligibilities, perhaps for one reason or another, you don't feel like you need to stay on the call. So I'm just going to hop right into it. For all of our grants here at the Community Foundation, we look at these different items to make sure that your organization is eligible. So the first one is your organization a nonprofit? This is a 501c3 tax-exempt charity. Or a public entity like a school district or a special district, perhaps a fire district, or are you working on a program or project that's fiscally sponsored by one or the other of these? I also want to point out that federally recognized tribes are welcome to apply as public agencies, and for tribes that are not federally recognized, you're welcome to apply with a nonprofit status or a fiscal sponsor. The second piece is your organization in good standing, both with the Community Foundation. So we look to see if your organization has submitted all past due grant reports. This is something that you can now view yourself in our new portal, which is super wonderful. You can check on that and see if you're past due. And then also, is your organization in good standing with state and federal registrations? So we check the status on GuideStar and also with the California Secretary of State to make sure that you're in good nonprofit standing. Sometimes there are issues, and so the best thing to do is for you to check these in advance as you are applying. And we provide links to GuideStar and the Secretary of State in the application, so it's really easy to just hyperlink and check while you're there. And then in terms of project eligibility, we ask that you read the fine print for each fund. They are all different and have different criteria. The main things to look for are the costs allowed or eligible. So for instance, if you are applying for salaries to operate a summer camp, is that something that the fund will cover, or do they not cover salaries? You also want to make sure that you meet the geographical criteria. So for instance, we have two funds this spring. One is just for the Burney area and one is just for Shasta County. And so just want to make sure that you pay attention to those. And last but not least, can your organization comply with the policies? So completing the project according to the terms and timeframes, which is typically 12 months after the grant agreement is signed. So not for projects that have already gotten started where the funds that you're requesting have already been spent. And can you comply with simple non-discrimination policy? So I bet that most of you are all set in terms of all these things, but I hope that's helpful. And I'm just going to launch one more quick poll to see what type of organization you're with today, because that'll also help guide some of the rest of this content. So what type of organization are you representing today? Either a nonprofit, a public agency, or a program or project that's fiscally sponsored by a nonprofit or a public agency. Very cool. Okay, I'm gonna move quickly because I'm conscious of the time, but I want to share this here. This is really interesting. It looks like about 84% are with nonprofits, a little less than 10% are with public agencies, and another 7% with fiscally sponsored groups. So thank you so much. It's really interesting. Okay. So let's start out with the Burney Regional Community Fund. If you are not in the Intermountain area of Eastern Shasta County, feel free to take a moment to check your phone, multitask. I'm giving you this permission. But this is a wonderful fund that's thanks to a seed gift from the Pattern Energy Group that services the greater Burney area. We do have a link in the application that shows those exact boundaries. If you are kind of on the fringe and aren't sure, you can take a look at that map. You can also ask us if you have particular questions, if it's really right on the edge. The grant range for this fund is between $1,000 and $7,500. And this is lovely because it's very broad. So grants are awarded to meet all kinds of needs within the community, whether it's equipment or programmatic in nature. So this is one fund where you can request for salaries and things like that to help your specific project or program. There are just a few things that aren't eligible in this fund. Those are school-related projects, and that's mainly because when this was formed, there was a separate pot of money outside of the community foundation that was set up for schools. Not eligible also are churches, land or building purchases, or grants to individuals. So this one is pretty straightforward. I know a lot of the Burney groups are really familiar with this one, but if you have really specific questions about the Burney Fund, feel free to put them in the chat box, or we can talk in upcoming weeks. All right, next, the ACES Resilience and Hope Fund of Shasta County. This opportunity is just for Shasta County, and so if you're in one of our other counties, feel free to take a moment to do what you need to do. This fund is thanks to our wonderful funding partners, the Shasta County Health and Human Services Agency and First Five Shasta. We're so grateful for them. We are moving into the 4th year of this particular fund. And many of you are likely familiar with ACEs, but if not, ACEs are adverse childhood experiences, and they're an accumulation of 10 traumatic childhood experiences that can affect the brain as children are developing. And unfortunately, here in the North State, we tend to have high ACEs scores. And in Shasta County, our ACEs scores are double the state average. So 40% of adults are reporting high ACEs scores. And this can correlate to things like poor health outcomes as people age, and also high rates of homelessness and substance abuse and incarceration. So pretty serious, but the good news is that ACEs can be prevented and mitigated, and that is what this fund is hoping to address. This grant range, so you can ask in this grant for between $5,000 and $50,000. The projects need to exclusively target Shasta County residents. And the fund is prioritizing these 3 things: evidence-based, preventative, and innovative projects, projects that are building either community capacity or organizational capacity by having policy, system, or environmental changes for really long-term effects. I have a hyperlinked to exactly what that means. What are we talking about when we're talking about PSE for long-term changes? That's hyperlinked both in this presentation, but also within the application. And so if you're not familiar with that and would like to learn more, you can read just a short 1-page article. This fund is also prioritizing balancing the numbers of people served and also trying to reach diverse populations to maximize impact by those who perhaps are most disproportionately affected by ACEs in our community. And we also have an article hyperlinked here and within the application that talks a little bit more about what we mean there. So we're looking for both projects that serve a lot of people, but that are also hitting perhaps underserved. Another thing about this fund, if you're considering applying for this fund, is that projects should be aligning with one of the 6 prevention strategies that's been outlined in the CDC's prevention guide. We also have this linked in the application. These 6 prevention strategies are strengthening economic supports for families, promoting social norms that protect against violence, ensuring a strong start for children, teaching skills to help parents and youth handle stress, connecting youth to caring adults and activities, and actually intervening to lessen immediate and long-term harms. So to be qualified for this particular program, your project should roughly line up with one of these categories. All right, that is it on the ACEs fund, but this one is a little bit complex. So if you are planning to apply for this fund, please do make sure that you read all of the fine print. All right, moving into the McConnell Fund. I think we'll see in the poll in a bit, but I think many of you are here for the McConnell Fund. We are so grateful for the McConnell Foundation. They are a private, independent foundation separate from us here at the Community Foundation that helps build better communities through philanthropy. And we help manage this one pool of their funds. They have others directly at their foundation, but we help manage this one pool of funds for grant making across the North State. For Shasta, Siskiyou, and Tehama counties, you can apply for up to $50,000. There's no minimum ask. So if you have a small project, that's just fine too. And for Trinity and Modoc counties, the grant maximum can be up to $30,000. And this is really important for the McConnell Fund. The main thing to walk away with on the McConnell Fund is that these grants are for either durable equipment or building-related projects. When we talk about durable equipment, we are talking about long-lasting equipment like 5 years plus, things like tractors, picnic tables, furniture, medical equipment, refrigerators, things of that nature. Or building related could be perhaps your nonprofit owns an office building that needs a new HVAC system or new windows, things of that nature. The McConnell Fund focuses on the areas of arts and culture, recreation, environment, community vitality, social services, healthcare, and children, youth, and education. And if your nonprofit or public entity is operating out of one of these areas and you're just not sure if you qualify, like what is community vitality? Do we fit in that category? Let me know. I'm happy to work through that with you. Okay. This is a lot of fine print. So when I'm confronted with a lot of fine print, I always, I know it's important, but sometimes it makes my eyes glaze over. So I like to just take a moment and try and just take it slowly and really understand each item. So that's what we're going to do here because this is super important. We never want an organization to invest time in submitting an application only for it to be not eligible because of one of these things. So we are investing the time now to go through these one by one to hopefully spare you some time and heartbreak on the other side. So for the McConnell Fund specifically, grants are not awarded to or for anything that's related to program expenses. So operating expenses, administrative, and this includes personnel costs. So staffing is not eligible for this fund, and also items that are consumable in nature. So that's things like paper and pencils or swag that gets given out at an event, anything that kind of gets used up versus that durable, long-lasting equipment. Now, that's not to say if you're submitting a project or program, you know, those types of costs might be involved, and that's okay. You can show it in the budget. They just can't specifically be asked for or provided for by this fund. Very important, grants are not awarded to or for essential government services. So this is equipment that's required of a public organization, given that it's public. So for instance, just as a simple kind of off-the-cuff example, if you are with a public fire district, volunteer fire district, it's not going to be eligible to request things that are really essential to that work. So things like radios or fire hoses. Something that might be eligible that we've seen awarded in the past for a public fire district are improvements on a fire hall that's used at large for the community, where many different community groups participate in that fire hall. So I hope that makes sense. This one's really important. If you are with a public agency and have questions about this, very specific questions about what is eligible and what is not, please contact me and we can work through that. And again, the heart of this is if it's something that, is very essential to your organization, another example might be school districts requesting new desks. We just assume that school districts, that those desks are really essential to operating the school. So that wouldn't be a fit. But if there's something at the school that's really above and beyond that might serve the community at large, that could be a fit. This is another one that is very important. So again, this fund is for durable equipment or building related improvements. And we want to point out that for permanent improvements to buildings or land not owned by the applicant organization, that doesn't work. So for instance, if you are requesting something to be built into the ground, like a shade structure, but the applicant doesn't own that land, that's not a fit. So for this particular fund, for building or land related projects that have permanent improvements, the application organization, which should be a 501c3 or a public entity, needs to be the owner of the building or the land. And we actually are going to ask on the application this year, who owns the land? If the building or the land is leased, you can still apply, but the requested items need to be movable should the organization's location change. And you can imagine why this clause is set up. If something is built permanently into the ground and it's not owned by the nonprofit, and then maybe that changes over to a private entity, the grant becomes not charitable. And so that is why this is important. If you have questions about this, sometimes there are very extenuating circumstances like extremely long-term leases or things like that. That would be a good thing to reach out to me on, and we can kind of troubleshoot our way through and see if it's eligible or not. We're almost done, guys. We're halfway there with the fine print on this fund. This one is actually for all of our funds. So we don't cover reimbursements. So if you are awarded a grant, basically the grant period starts at the signing of the grant contract. And so if you have already spent funds, you can't go back and use awarded funds for reimbursement. This is new this year, so perk up. Grants are not awarded for equipment that's going to be stored at personal residences. And again, you can probably imagine why this has been set up. There's just, it helps us and our fund, the funders that we work with, ensure that the grants that we're issuing remain charitable. Also, grants are not awarded for sectarian religious purposes. If you're with a faith-based organization, you can apply, but the project needs to serve the whole community and not just church members. And also, these things are pretty standard. It doesn't cover planning costs, purchasing building or land, leases or leased equipment, or covering general things like endowment funds or annual fund drives. So again, I know that these are very specific, but they're super important. So if you are a public agency that has questions on whether or not something's considered essential government services, or you have a ownership question in terms of permanent improvements to building or land, please contact me in the next few weeks. All right. One more thing for the McConnell Fund. This is a competitive fund. Typically we're able to fund about 25% of the applications that apply. Your project will be more competitive if you, one, haven't received a grant from the McConnell Fund in the immediate last year cycle. Sometimes it does happen. There was a project or two in recent years where they got funded in back-to-back years, but it's not super common. Projects are also more competitive if it has a strong volunteer and community component. So we actually will ask about this on this particular application. How are volunteers involved? How does it serve the community at large? And then last but not least, it is more competitive if you are getting funding from other sources as well, and that this is just the last dollars in, the cherry on top that's needed to finish a project, versus if you have a big project and you're early on and you're seeking first dollars in. And this kind of goes back to one of our goals at the Community Foundation, and that's that we like to see projects completed within a year, if that's possible. So for instance, if you have a project, maybe you are trying to replace the roof on your nonprofit thrift store, and it's expensive, perhaps it's $50,000. Your application will be more competitive if perhaps you already have $25,000 raised from various sources and are just requesting $25,000. All right, last but not least, many of you are familiar with the Redding Rancheria Community Fund, and we're so grateful to our friends at Redding Rancheria and Wind River Casino. This fund just celebrated its 20-year anniversary in 2022. They serve Shasta and Trinity counties. I wanted to point out, they typically in the past have had a spring and a fall cycle. This year, they've had such an abundance of applications to their funds that they are not going to be accepting applications this spring. In other words, it's not open, it's closed this cycle. If you applied in fall of 2022, your application is going to be considered in the spring of 2023. I've emailed all of you that applied in fall of 2022 directly about that, but if you have questions, let me know. We anticipate the Redding Rancheria Community Fund accepting new applications for new projects in fall of 2023, but it's not set in stone yet, but definitely keep an eye out for that late summer, early fall. All right, so I'm going to launch our last poll. We'd love to hear what funds you are planning to apply for. The Burney Regional Community Fund, the ACES Resilience and Hope Fund of Shasta County, and or the McConnell Fund. Some of you may be in a sweet spot where you can do a few of these. And so you can select multiple, I believe, if that's the case. All right. It looks like about 12% are planning to apply for the Burney Fund, 26 for ACES, and 84 for the McConnell Fund. Very interesting. Thank you so much for participating in that. All right, so we're going to switch gears a little bit from talking about the specifics of those funds to more of the application in general and get into the online portal. I want to just do a quick overview of what's in an application. So here at the Community Foundation, we're really looking for big picture information about your organization. So sometimes we might be readers might be familiar with your organization and sometimes not. So we ask for a quick overview of what you've been up to, what you're up to these days, and then also your financial health. We also are looking for more specifics about the specific project you're asking for. So why is it needed? What's the impact that it'll make? We're looking for how much is it going to cost and how much support you've already raised. And then it's very helpful for us to have some pictures too, so communication pieces. So these are kind of the four main components of the application. And I'd like to point out at this time that something that's really cool and wonderful and unique about the community foundations is that applications are being read and reviewed by volunteer community members. They are in your area. So for instance, if you're in Modoc County and you're applying for the McConnell Fund for Modoc County, your application will be read and reviewed by people living in Modoc County. So this is really special, and what it means for you as an applicant is that we're not looking for buzzwords or fancy language or jargon or anything like that. In fact, the less of that you have, the better, because your application might be being read by someone not familiar with your sector specific language. And so it's actually to your benefit to share it as if you're sharing this information with a friend or someone in town that you're just excited to tell your project to. All right, our shiny new grants portal. So we launched this in fall of 2022. Again, some of you have already gotten in and started using the new online portal. Others, it's brand new to you starting now. We are very excited about it. There has been a learning curve for all of us, just like any kind of new technology, but overall, there's some really great new features that our old system didn't have. There's a dashboard, so you can view all at once your past and in-progress applications. There's a lovely thing where you enter, once you're getting your record set up, you enter your organizational info, and then you're not having to enter it on every single application, which is nice, like your address and all that. It's just kind of a time suck that you don't have to do in this new system. If there are a few of you at your organization working on an application, you can invite collaborators in. There's instructions are hyperlinked here if you need some assistance with that. Oh, I love this. This new system more frequently auto saves. What a blessing for those of us that have been in the situation where we've lost some work due to low internet bandwidth or power outages. Also, this new system lets us do electronic contracts. So those of you that have been with the Community Foundation for a long time know that we used to mail contracts, which would then get sent back, and it just took a while. So now this process goes much quicker between the time when a grant might be awarded and when you might receive the funds. Also, something that's lovely is that these contracts as well as reports get linked to an application and a user, and the auto reminders are sent out. So for example, if you are awarded a grant and we assign a report that's due in a year, you will get a reminder 14 days before the grant report is due, and then a day before the grant report is due, which is very helpful if you aren't tracking that. We hope that you're tracking that somewhere else, but if not, it gives you a good reminder. And I had to put in a cat picture because cats. All right, so where do I find the applications? Again, you'll head to our main grants webpage, cfnorthstate.org/grant/grants, or you can browse your way there from our main page. You will see, if you scroll down on that page, a listing of all of the opportunities. Please note that not all of these are open this spring. Some are fall, some are every other year. So again, the only 3 open right now are Burney, ACES, and McConnell. If you click on a specific one like Burney under Read More, it'll take you to that fund page where you can see recent grant awards. That's sometimes helpful. A reminder of the deadline. You can preview the applications in PDF format all at once, which is great. The only thing I will say about the preview application questions, this little pro tip here, is it's going to look longer at first because we branch questions in applications, which mean that if you are a nonprofit or a public agency, you might have to answer slightly different questions, especially in terms of financials. And this posts all of those questions. So you won't have to do all of them, depending on what type of entity you are. If you have questions on that, holler. And then there's the click here to apply button. For new users, if you do not have an account, so you've never logged in to this page here, what you'll do is once you click that apply button, it's going to prompt you to create a new account. There's this little button here that says create new account. It's important to remember, if you perhaps applied for a grant a number of years ago, that was in our old system of Smarter Select. So you might say, well, I had a login. That was probably for Smarter Select. So it's time to create a new account unless you applied for a grant last spring, or unless you've been working with us recently on another type of grant, like one with a report that was coming up due, or something that got funded through a donor advised fund. Quick tip in terms of new users: if you're a grant writer for multiple organizations, each organization is going to need an account with a unique email. We know that this is not ideal, but it's the way that it is hard coded. So thank you for bearing with us. The system just will not let you use the same email for multiple organizations. And so we recommend using a general email. So for example, if the nonprofit that you're grant writing for has like a general info mailbox, to use that, and then whoever is checking that to let you know as the grant writer that you might be getting emails to that account. Also, later, to get back in, if you head to our main grants webpage, where it says applying for a grant, you can click visit our grants portal, and that will get you back to this logon page. You can also bookmark this logon page to get back in. A few new system pro tips. Once that you have created the account, the system is going to take you directly to the eligibility quiz for whatever fund you have selected. If you already have an account that's existing and you go to that Burney page and then click here to apply, it will take you straight to the eligibility quiz. And the eligibility quiz is just a quick place to say, to double check that you and your project meet the parameters of the fund. If you're eligible, what will happen after you take the quiz is you'll see an apply button. So you can click that and proceed onward. We have tried to make the eligibility quiz as simple as possible, but sometimes, like you might click something too quick or go, oh shoot, like I clicked yes, but I meant no. Feel free to contact us. We can reset it and you can take it again. That happens sometimes, we get it. Another thing is in this new system, in the new portal, it will tell you how many word or characters, like what the word or character limit is. I just want to let you all know that you do not need to write to that maximum count. We've set them high in case you are also applying to other funders. You can copy and paste. We've all been in that situation where you perhaps are applying for multiple sources and copy and paste, and then it's like exceeds the word count and you're like, how do I shorten this? So that's kind of why we've left it higher. But again, going back to the fact that these are being reviewed by community members, simple and brief is great. You don't need to be an expert grant writer to apply here. So keep it simple. Once you have submitted an application, you're going to receive a confirmation screen. A screen will pop up that says, yay, you've submitted it. You'll also get an email. If those things don't happen, then you haven't submitted it. You will also see on your dashboard, which is like the home landing page of your account, you'll see that it's submitted. And from there, you can download the application packet. The button that says download application packet, that's a wonderful thing to do. When you click that, it will download to your computer your entire filled out application. So if you ever need to reference it in the future, it's there for you. It's there for someone else at your organization. You can share it with them. So I highly recommend downloading the application packet once you've applied. I am going to point out that, like learning any new technology, there's a learning curve here. As I stated at the very beginning of this, we had over 230 people register for this call today. So there's many of you, which is fantastic, across the North State applying for grants, but there's just one of me. So technical assistance can be limited as the deadline approaches. We try super hard to get to everyone's questions, but it will benefit you and also my sanity and my ability to help you if you start in on this sooner rather than later. We don't want to have anyone get into a situation where it is 4 p.m. on a deadline day and there's a technical issue you're not sure about, something within our new online portal. Our phone typically rings off the hook and emails come in like a flood, and we want to get to everyone, but sometimes it's hard as it gets closer. So thank you for starting in on this early. And where do I go to learn more? So we just don't have the time today to cover absolutely everything that's in this new system. But if, again, from our main grants website, you'll see where it says applying for a grant. Right above where there's that portal login, you'll see if you click here for instructions for submitting grant applications, and that takes you to a nice little video. I know video walkthroughs help me tremendously when I'm applying for grants. So that will take you there. So if you're brand new in this system, or even if you used the system last fall, but it's been a while, this video is like under 4 minutes. I really encourage you to watch it first. It's going to help save you time and heartache. So what happens next? Basically, after you submit an application, we run our due diligence to ensure that you're qualified. And so again, we check with GuideStar to double check and make sure that if you're a nonprofit, that you have that federal status current, and also with the California Secretary of State. If you are a public agency, you're off the hook in these areas. And then at that point, once we make sure that everyone is eligible, we send the qualified applications out to our panels of community members that are reviewing and making decisions on these grants. They read through them. We read through them here at the Community Foundation too, and together we might have questions for you. We might ask these follow-up questions in an email. We'll use the email that you used to apply through the portal. We also might set up a site visit if it's something that really needs to be looked at. We might set up a time to ask some questions via Zoom. So any of those 3 things might happen. Any of those 3 things might not happen. That doesn't mean that your application wasn't great. Maybe it was just so clear that we didn't have any follow-up questions, not that we weren't interested. So a lot of potential there. After we've asked all of our questions, the panel gets together and makes decisions and recommends them to our board here at the Community Foundation. They have the final stamp of approval. We used to mail out notification letters of grant status. So we would mail award letters, or we would mail denial letters. Now, with the new portal, everything is done by email through the portal, and we send those notifications to the email of the applicant that has set up the account. So if perhaps you are working together with someone and on an application and you're like, gosh, I never heard back. If they used their email, they probably heard back. This is also a great time to point out, this is a good period of time to be checking your spam or junk filter. So it's totally possible with this new system that emails might go to your junk or spam filter. And so if you check that every once in a while, you can just make sure we're not like asking you follow-up questions or sending you an award letter, denial letter, and you're not getting it. This process as a whole takes about 3 months from the due date. So for instance, if the due date is in mid-February, it'd be mid-February to mid-March, mid-March to mid-April, mid-April to mid-May. Mid-May is the time that we'll probably be notifying you either way, if you were awarded or denied. And any time within that 3-month period, we might be reaching out to ask questions on the application. So check that email, very helpful. And I like to think of this time as kind of like your application is winding its way, through to get to Mordor, like, you're on like a treasure hunt. It's winding its way. We're not just sitting on it. There's a process where it's being thoroughly reviewed. All right. If your organization gets a grant, this is so wonderful. Again, contracts are now signed online in the portal. This really cuts down the amount of time it takes to get you funds. Once the grant agreement is signed online, we then will add the grant to our weekly check queue and then mail a check to the organizational address that's provided in the application for the full amount. So some other funders, you provide receipts and then get paid. For our grants here at the Community Foundation, we mail the full amount up front, and then After that, you have 12 months to complete the project and submit a final report online in the portal. Again, this is where you'll be auto-emailed reminders that that's coming up. The past few years have been really unprecedented in terms of COVID, staffing changes, supply chain issues, extreme weather events. And so if you are finding that it's taking a little bit longer, please reach out to us. We have a process for approving or denying extensions. But it's best to be in touch with us on that if you are, like kind of looking at it and going, oh, I don't think we're going to do this in 12 months. It's better to let us know earlier on than at that 12-month mark. Grant reports. So this final grant report, we're basically asking for your help to tell your story back to the funders so that they can understand the impact of the money that they have invested. So it's helpful to attach photos to that grant report, particularly ones that we can also share on our social media to show the world all of the amazing work that you're doing. Faces are usually really helpful. Sometimes, depending on what the project is, for example, if your nonprofit was awarded some funds for a new roof on your building, you can attach a photo of the roof, but it's also wonderful, and perhaps even more wonderful, if you send pictures of, people enjoying the programs or benefiting the programs that are going on under that roof. That's just, people resonate more with that than just a roof or just a, HVAC system sitting on the floor. So those are kind of the photos that we're looking for. And grant reports also help us account for how monies were spent. So we do ask that you submit expenditures. It's most helpful if they're submitted in the original budget format. So when you're applying, you'll be asked to submit a budget. If you're awarded a grant, it's helpful to take that budget and say what down here, there's a small picture, what you estimated it to be, and then what it actually ended up to be. If you end up not spending all the funds, we can work with you to see if there's other things they might be spent on that still fall within that particular project or program, or if a refund should come back. And that really helps us here at the Community Foundation because we're also a nonprofit, a public charity, and we have to account for how the funds were spent. So very helpful. And if your organization does not get a grant, please do try again in future rounds. Some of these funds, again, they're very competitive. So, if you apply, for instance, to a state or federal grant, they may be even more competitive, perhaps only funding, between 1% to 5% of applicants. Ours are usually a little more, 25%-ish range. But truly, there's just not enough funds to go around. Maybe if we won mega billions or whatever the lotto thing is, that would be amazing. But we're so grateful for the funding that we do have available. But it's never quite enough to fund all of the amazing projects. So do try again. Don't let it get you too discouraged. Also reach out for feedback. So often once those award or denial emails go out, we get a lot of requests for feedback. So it may take us some time to get back to you on that. But please do. Sometimes, again, it's just that they're, for whatever reason, the project didn't really excite the panel, or they didn't feel like it was the highest need given the other applications. But sometimes there's something really specific in the application that we're happy to help coach you up on. And so it never hurts to reach out for feedback and see if it was specific or just, didn't rise to the top in terms of competitiveness. Also, we often send unfunded but qualified projects to potential donors of interest. So again, the Community Foundation, we have about 150 funds, and they're mostly held by private families who want to do good in the North State. They've set up funds to help them meet their charitable goals. And I have seen it happen many times where after a grant cycle, we share some of the unfunded projects with fund holders that we think might be a fit. And sometimes they'll raise their hands and they'll say, hey, this one looks interesting to us. Tell us more. And we're able to share more about your project because you've invested the time in applying. So it's kind of like a bonus application. If you don't get awarded from the fund, it doesn't happen all the time. It maybe doesn't even happen frequently, but it can happen that your project might get picked up by another funder. And last but not least, if you don't get a grant through one of these funds, just know that grants are just one piece of the fundraising pie. Healthy nonprofits and organizations have diverse revenues. So perhaps you have a major gifts program or monthly giving donors, or you raise money through email newsletters and appeals, or maybe you have a crab feed. There's all kinds of different ways to raise money, and grants are just one. And actually, the Jumpstart Fundraising Accelerator program that we have here at the Community Foundation is a great way to learn more about how to diversify your fundraising. All right. So that brings us to the end. Amazingly enough, we are on time. We have a few minutes left. I wanted to make sure to provide contact information here. I want to share in particular, if you have a technical question about the online portal, the easiest way to reach me on those is to email. And that's because I often will send screen snips or send direct links, and that's hard to do on the phone. It can be really difficult to answer technical assistance questions on the phone because I'm not seeing necessarily the same screen that you're seeing. So if you have a technical assistance question, you've already watched that little 3-minute video, you've read through the instructions, you've done your best, but something's not happening with the account setup or things like that, please email me first. But you're also welcome to call. We love chatting with people on the phone as we're able, and hope that that's helpful. So I think at this point, I'm going to just really quickly check the chat box since we have a few minutes, but this does end our formal presentation. So if you don't have any further questions, thank you again so much for attending. I know that this was a lot, but I really appreciate your investment of time. It helps us reach a lot of people all at once. So thank you so much just for taking the care and time and for all of the great work that you do for others in the North State. Truly from the bottom of our hearts, we're grateful for you and all the things you do to make our neck of the woods better. So farewell if you're all done. I'm just going to pop into the chat box and see what's going on in here and if there's anything else. Can the PowerPoint be printed? That's a great question. I intend to save it as a PDF. The links should still work, and send that out with the email. We'll also likely post that on our website too, because we want you to have all the tools available at your fingertips. Yeah, perfect. Oh, thanks, Ernie, for pointing out the Living on the Hedge shirts. That was our Healthy Shasta walking team. Oh, I'm so glad. Okay, it looks like my wonderful colleague Anna has answered all of the chat questions. So at this point, I'm going to stop recording. Again, we will be emailing you this recording. God willing, it recorded all okay. I'm hoping to send that out by tomorrow. It does take us some time to spool it and all of that. So bear with us, but we should be sending it out hopefully tomorrow. And thank you again. All right. From here, I'm going to stop the recording and say farewell. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your days. Enjoy the sunshine.